Welcome to The Path to Growth, the podcast where we sit down with the most innovative minds in the channel to explore how tech leaders scale smarter, move faster, and enable the ecosystems around them. I'm your host, Matt Yorke, CEO of the Channel Company. Today's episode is all about a critical and timely topic: how cybersecurity vendors can fuel real business growth by empowering their partners. In an era of non-stop threats, partner success is no longer just a sales strategy, it's a survival strategy. Joining me is someone who's not only building world-class security solutions, but also leading the charge when it comes to enabling partners. Danny Jenkins, CEO of ThreatLocker. Danny is the co-founder and CEO of ThreatLocker, a global leader in zero trust endpoint protection. With decades of experience in IT security and a deep passion for the channel, Danny has helped thousands of MSPs and solution providers elevate their security offerings and their growth potential. Before founding ThreatLocker, he led multiple successful tech ventures and has become a trusted voice in cybersecurity, especially among MSPs and MSSPs. He's a hands-on CEO, a tireless advocate for partner education, and someone who truly understands how to build with and through the channel. Danny, a warm welcome.
Thank you, Matt, for having me today.
All right, let's dive straight in. Let's talk about the security ecosystem. So cybersecurity has never been more top of mind, but it's also becoming more complex. How do you see the current security landscape shaping the future of the channel?
So I don't think security is getting more complex. The attacks have changed and they're constantly innovating, but fundamentally, they're all the same. I think what's getting more complex is the options and how people are thinking about stopping them. We're in the same situation that we were in 2001, where we couldn't detect malware, we couldn't detect threats, we'd constantly get viruses. The only difference is now they demand millions of dollars from you and destroy your own whole business. And before they did very little. I think what's complex is just so many options and so much noise and so many alerts. But the principles are still the same: hardening systems, reducing surface area, stopping things that aren't needed. And that hasn't changed. It's become more important.
So how do you advise customers and channel partners to deal with cutting through that noise and kind of get to the signal of what a company really needs from a cyber perspective?
So I think that fundamentally you need to look at what the problem is. And everyone thinks of hackers and cyber criminals as some kind of genius that's sitting in a room, pressing some magical buttons, finding a buffer overflow and getting into your system. And you have no idea how to stop them. But they're not actually doing that. They're using basic techniques. They're finding open ports. They're getting into RMMs. They're using remote access software. They're getting users to install or run a rat from a macro in a Word document. And that's how they're getting on your system. And when they're on the system, they're encrypting files, they're stealing data, and they're using basic tools. They're not finding some backdoor code. This isn't like the Swordfish movie where someone's just like pounding on a keyboard and getting through security. It's literally just basic things they're doing. And I think when you're thinking about how do I stop security, I heard someone say, well, we stop morphing in memory and do something else. And I was like, look, it's far more basic than that. Someone to get on your system, you've got an open port, you've got with a vulnerability or weak authentication on it, you've got a piece of software running. That's pretty much it. So fix the basic things, turn on dual factor, make your password strong, stop untrusted software, and think about the ways they're actually getting in, and not, hey, I just need some magic that gives me a nice report at the end of the month that tells me there's 50,000 threats being blocked.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about partner enablement and how that can be a growth driver. So oftentimes people will talk about enablement as a tool, but of course it's really a growth strategy. How have you made partner enablement a central pillar of the growth at ThreatLocker?
So I think when we started ThreatLocker, we realized that the way to stop threats is very simple. But 99% of the world isn't looking for what we're selling. They're looking for a solution, but they're Googling for EDR or they're Googling for antivirus or things like that. And that makes it very hard for us to grow because people aren't looking for what we're selling. And we decided the way we are going to get people to buy ThreatLocker and to grow as a company is to educate them, make sure they know what they need. And it's the same principle for MSPs. If you go into a customer and you tell them that the world's on fire and you need this magic pill to stop it, they see through that. They see that you're just talking a lot of buzzwords. But if you go in and say, look, this is companies that are getting attacked, this is how they're getting attacked, we have a very clear strategy of how we're going to protect you, and just explain to them, obviously not in a deep technical way. You're not going to start talking about PowerShell loading in-memory attacks to get around software, but very, very simply explain to your customer, explain to your prospect that this is what we're dealing with and this is how we stopped it. This is how our technology stops, and the technology we're going to put in yours and manage stops a 0-day. This is how us responding to you as an MSP when someone does get on your server is going to stop that becoming a big issue. And if you explain to them why this is important and say your outcome is going to be you have technology that you can use, is streamlined, you're not worrying about outages and downtime and malware, they're more likely to buy. And I think for us, making sure MSPs are aware of that, training them on that, training them on how to deliver messages to small businesses and medium businesses, because it's not all IT people you're selling to, making sure that they understand conceptually what is zero trust. Not, hey, it's application whitelisting that's going to intercept executions at the driver, but very, very simply that we're going to make sure everything that runs on your machine is trusted and vetted by your MSP. I think that's how we enable partners, making sure that they understand how to deliver the message to their clients. And then also how to market that message, how to set up, and we'll often send engineers out, and even myself will go out to conferences for MSPs and talk to their customers about attacks we've seen and how we actually stop them.
Okay, so education is key, right? Is what you're saying. We hear that in all of our studies. Partners are constantly looking for content. I guess the question for you is, as the world has become and businesses have become, more and more aware of the threat of cybersecurity, and perhaps to your earlier point, maybe a little bit too anxious. How has that need for education and your motions around education, how have they changed?
I think it comes back down to keeping it simple for the customer, and don't try and pivot onto the latest fear factor, because if you start saying AI is the biggest threat, or we're using AI because that's what's in the news, customers don't want to hear that either. I think they want to hear it very simple and very clear, and you should keep that message simple and consistent to your customers, because if you say one thing today and you say a different thing tomorrow, then they're going to start questioning, well, why do you keep flip-flopping on your opinion? I think the world changes less than people think it does. The news cycles change and businesses are still doing the same business they were 5 years ago. So you have to convince them that, look, this is the same as it was 5 years ago. The only thing that's really changed is the impact to your bottom line when you get hacked. And keeping helping partners understand that is important. But also a lot of MSPs are technical people. I'm a technical person and I hate sales. And what I realized when we started ThreatLocker is engineers are really, really good at engineering, and they're really, really bad at follow-up and communication and things like that. So one of the things we did, the first hire I made, those three of us that founded ThreatLocker, was a salesperson. And their job was to be on every single call that I am on. And they said very little. They introduced the call. They said hi. They maybe gave a high-level pitch of what ThreatLocker does. And at the end of the call, they made sure we booked the next call. And that's the same principle for MSPs, because you need to make sure if you're a technical person, you're going to be the best person in the world to pitch and sell your solution and your product. But if you're not good at follow-up, if you're not good at asking the question, find someone who can ask that question for you and is going to bring it forward. And today we've got 45 solution engineers and 180 salespeople in ThreatLocker. And it's the same principle. Every single call that an engineer takes has a salesperson or an account manager on the call. Because, and their job is really project management. It's not selling, but it's project management. And good engineers tend to have really bad follow-up skills.
Okay, that's interesting. And I would say, having seen you on stage many times, I would tell you I think you're actually a pretty damn good salesperson. You've obviously picked up those skills along the way somewhere.
But I will forget as soon as I get off a call what I'm supposed to do unless someone reminds me. And and I think getting the MSPs out of their comfort zone is hard, but bringing people in to help ask the difficult questions. What does it take to move this agreement forward? What do you think about your security right now? Engineers don't want to ask those questions.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So can we just unpack that a little bit? Because obviously, look, you're building a very successful global business. Are you seeing variances in that need for education or the type of support and education you're giving the partners around the world, or is it pretty much a common approach?
It's a common approach. I think the markets change, and in the UK, MSPs have. I feel like I've come from a more technical background and much worse at sales, and I think that's a little bit of culture too. So if you think, I mean, you're from the UK, so you know when we're in school, we're never getting up and doing a presentation in front of the class, and in the US, people are a little bit more outgoing. So if you look at MSPs in the UK, I would say most of them we're seeing charge $25, $30 an endpoint a month, compared to the US it varies, but north of 100 on average. So we definitely have to work harder in some cultures. I think the message is the same. And I think the problem when you're talking to the customer is still the same. And I remember when we were in ThreatLocker, so we're 600 staff now. And when we started ThreatLocker, we got to about 65 staff and we were struggling to onboard our own IT. We're all technical people, but we were struggling with our own internal IT issues in that we couldn't get laptops done quick enough. We were hiring too fast. And we thought about bringing an MSP in. And I went to an MSP who was a ThreatLocker partner. And this was around the time of the Kaseya incident. So it kind of scared me even more at that point. But we got this MSP to do a proposal. And my concern, my number one priority was every time an employee starts, they need to have a laptop in their hand that's ready to go. I cannot afford 3 days, 4 days for them to not have their tech right. They need all the tools installed. They need everything perfect. The MSP spent more time talking about, hey, we can work on a discount for you, than talking about, I'm going to make sure that you can get a laptop in your hand. And I didn't care if I spent $100 a month, $200 a month, $500 a month. All I cared about was my technology was working for my team. And the MSP was so concerned that and they're a good MSP, still a partner, but I was like, they're saying the wrong things to me because frankly, I don't care if it costs me $500 a month or $100 a month. What I care is you guarantee to me that laptop is going to be working all the time. And now we actually decided to build our own internal team, partially because of the Kaseya thing that happened at the same time. And we were worried about uncontrolled tools in our environment.
Interesting. Okay, so let's switch gears. You mentioned this. I want to pick up on it. You mentioned AI. Obviously, it's overhyped, but there's a role around AI and automation. How is that playing a role in your business as you continue to scale in delivering training and supporting your partners today?
Okay, so we have a whole team that does nothing but focus on AI. And I will summarize my opinion on AI right now. It's hyped summaries of what comes back from Google. And I'm not saying it has no place, but it is wrong 20% of the time. And even in the most simple questions, and we are using it. So we use AI to validate human decisions. So we have our web filtering right now. And whenever a website gets blocked under an explicit or a gambling or a negative tag, it actually gets sent to AI and gets sent to a human to determine the accuracy of it. AI is wrong 80% of the time. Now, in a world of security, 80% is not a number. Sorry, it's right 80% of the time. I got it wrong. It's wrong 20% of the time. In a world where in security, we're 20% of the time wrong, that's not a good stat. And it's very, very confidently wrong. But it does serve a purpose. We use it to validate decisions by humans because humans are wrong. If you give 1,000 websites to one of our team, they're probably wrong like 0.5% of the time because they make mistakes. People make mistakes. But so cross-referencing data is very, very useful with AI. It's not. It cannot be used to make decisions in a security world. It can be used to help you deliver better reports. It can be used to help you refine your communication skills. And there is a place for it. And it can be used in coding, not to deliver solutions, but to deliver functions. And I think as we use it in our business, we have a team of people that does nothing but trying to figure out where it will help the security industry. But the more we get from the team, the more we look at it, the more I think it's overhyped and is essentially is a really, really well glorified spell checker and code creator.
Well, that was certainly, if it wasn't what was already happening in the markets, that would have a dramatic impact, that statement on some of the Gen AI players. But I was at one of our events recently, and you gave another presentation. You talked a lot about how the hackers, the bad guys, are using AI to obviously just continually learn what's going on and try and find new ways of getting inside the system. How are companies like ThreatLocker combating that?
And I think it comes back down to the threat hasn't changed, who's creating it and how fast. So AI is really bad at writing solutions, but it's really good at writing code functions. And we did a number of demos. And again, when we're thinking about defending, that's really, really difficult to use AI. But when we think about attacking, it's much, much easier because now you only need to be right 80%. Imagine they only need to be right 1% of the time. We need to be right 100% of the time. So if you can create a reverse shell or a piece of malware, so we did I think actually at your last conference, we showed a video of me asking ChatGPT questions, and I said, can you write me a piece of malware that uploads all of the files to a Google Cloud repository? And the answer was absolutely no, go to hell. I said, please, I tried everything and it wouldn't let me. And this is today's ChatGPT. I then literally in the same conversation asked for a piece of software that identifies where my files are on their computer and then backs them up to Google Cloud. And it gave me this code right away. So what we're dealing with now is much more malware being created that's undetectable. And one of the reasons it's undetectable is for that exact reason. Nobody knows the intent of the software. They only know the behavior. And the intent and the behavior of backup software mimics the behavior of data exfiltration, and vice versa. So you're left as an endpoint detection tool with the decision, do I block their backup from running or do I block someone from stealing their data? And you don't know which you're doing. I think where we are helping people is it comes back down to those same principles. For us, it doesn't matter. Like it's always been the same scenario. If you need this in your business, it's your decision to need it in your business. If it's not, whether it's backup software or whether it's data exfiltration software is irrelevant. It shouldn't be allowed to run in your business. And that's where we've come out really strong in protecting from AI threats. We saw last night on our MDR team, someone had RDP open, an MSP had RDP open on a customer server. We saw a brand new piece of ransomware we've never seen before. Someone got onto a server, RDP was open, she'd never been open. No, it wasn't RDP. They got in through their RMM software actually. And they tried to run the software. It was blocked. They disabled Windows Defender on the machine. It triggered an MDR alert. They used different file extensions. We analyzed the software, different file extensions that we've ever seen in ransomware before. Very, very hard to detect. And with a combination of blocking it first, with the MDR team responding to it, allowed the customer to essentially get woken up at 2 a.m. in the morning and have their server locked down.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's as we wrap this up, I want to just start with a question that we're always going to have in this series. Same question every time, and I think it's fitting for today's conversation for such a high growth company such as ThreatLocker. What's your path to growth?
I think growth is very, very simple. I think step one is you create a product that solves a real problem and is really valuable to your industry, to your buyer. And in our case, that is an endpoint protection platform. And it includes the support, it includes the backup, it includes the onboarding. A product is a whole solution. It's not just a piece of software. And the second part of growth is you make sure every single person who's a potential buyer knows that product exists. And that's all that's required for growth. And if you've got a strong product, your renewals will come in. The product will take care, that the customers will love the product. If you've got a weak product, you won't be able to outsell your churn rates. But for us, we've got a 99.96% renewal rate month over month, and we've got and we just told the whole world it exists. We educate them, we tell them why it's important. We went to 850 trade shows last year. Not every MSP can go to 850 trade shows, but ThreatLocker did as a company. And we just make sure that the whole world knows the product exists. And they're the two things that are required to growth. Everything else is a part of those two functions.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me, and I'll just pick up on the trade shows before I wrap up. If anyone's ever at a trade show, make sure you find the ThreatLocker person, because I know for a fact that they're the last ones to leave the bar, and that's a company rule.
I'll tell you a little secret on that too. They're also not allowed to get drunk.
Well,
Last one to leave the bar, and you'll never see them. Well, now and again you'll see them drunk, but there's consequences.
yeah. Well, there's the throw the drink over the shoulder as you do the shots. I used to work with somebody who did a very good job of that. So here's what I heard. I just want to wrap up. So look, the options out there are complex, but the bad guys are actually not. They're no smarter than they've ever been. Keep it simple. Education is key, and the guidelines or the post to growth are create a real product that solves real life business problems, and make sure everybody knows about it. Danny, thank you for joining us today on the path to growth. Your insights on how enablement fuels partner success, especially in the cybersecurity space, are incredibly invaluable for any vendor looking to scale through the channel. Until next time, I'm Matt Yorke, and this has been The Path to Growth. Thanks for listening.